Hi. Today I want to talk about a subject which perhaps I invented because it sounds a little bit weird. Is I also wrote a letter from the I have a section called Letters from the Love Cafe in Find Your Secret Key, and I wrote a letter there which was subjected as rational spirituality. And some people found it a little bit weird because it sounds weird because the word rational and spirituality somehow seems not to go together. But in my personal opinion, they must go together. Because if spirituality is irrational, if it doesn't have rational effects in my daily life, well, what's the point? Then I'll be an irrational person living in another so-called spiritual dimension away from the realities of the world. I don't want that kind of spirituality. So I always questioned. I was very skeptical in my spiritual life about the spiritual communities or teachings, teachers, mystical kind of stuff, which are somehow away from rationality, which means away from truth. Truth must be rational. That's my opinion. And I observed these people, these teachers, teachings, groups, communities, and in this observation I realized they are too far away in a different world, so-called spiritual world, but for me they are deeply asleep in that so-called spiritual world. And for me spirituality must mean an awakened state of mind, awakened to life, to the beauty of life, not asleep in a spiritual stuff. Because if I believe in certain spiritual things in a community, in a group, having so-called mystical experiences and all those, everybody can have every kind of experience. All these, if you talk to these spiritual people, they'll tell you about so many experiences. Those who believe in Jesus might talk to Jesus, those who believe in Buddha might talk to Buddha, and those who believe in the other things, gods and goddesses, might meet the gods and goddesses. Right? If the mind wants to create something, believe in something, and desires to experience something spiritually, then it will create the illusion. If my background is related with Jesus, I'll have the illusion of Jesus, and if it is Buddha, then I'll have the illusion of Buddha. Very simple. Let's not complicate this. But then, am I rational? Or am I moving away from the rational reality? I think I am moving away from the rational reality. And the very movement away from the rational reality is, I think, the beginning of sorrow, suffering in the so-called spiritual area. Because then I'll move away from the human relationship also, because I'm becoming more and more irrational, isolated in my so-called spiritual world, with my strange mystical experiences and all those kind of stuff. Now, I deny that kind of spirituality. My understanding of spirituality is, as I said, intelligence. That implies being rational, questioning everything, including my own personal experiences of spiritual kind. I have no experiences, basically. I am not desiring to have any experience, because the moment you desire to experience something spiritually, the bliss, the nirvana, happiness, all those kind of stuff, and if you desire too much, you will experience something. But I question whether that is the real thing. I am not sure. So, those things are must be pushed away to start with, to be rational in my spiritual path, in my spiritual journey. I want to be rational until the very end. Intelligent, rational. So rationality and spirituality can go together. Why not? Spirituality means, you open your heart, love it. As I explained in the other day in the other video, just wipe out what love is not, observation, all those kind of stuff, and slowly spiritual something, love will come. So spirituality is there, but that observation, intelligence, on the other side, is rationality. So spirituality and rationality is going together in my personal life. They are not two separate things. They go together. And they must go together. Because then I get lost in that so-called spiritual area. It becomes like a wetland. I go in and I can't get out. Many people are like that. When they begin to have strange experiences, they get lost in those experiences. Then out of their darkness, they look for a guru, and the guru will appear when you look for a guru, but he is more confused than you are. So, clarity, rationality is very important for us not to get lost in this spiritual journey, spiritual path. And then demands, I must have no desires to experience certain spiritual, mystical stuff. I don't think spirituality has anything to do with those kind of things. It's invention of people basically who don't want to take the real journey, let's put it this way. They want some kind of entertainment. There is entertainment, as we all say, in the real world, football match and other things. And then I have enough of all those things. They don't answer my questions. So I had enough of these things. I want a spiritual thing. And then there are lots of entertainments in the spiritual area. So entertainment. There's many things they will offer to you. Now also sex becomes a good entertainment in the spiritual area. Through the sacred sex, you will reach nirvana. You see? Or other things. Many other mystical experiences are being offered to these people who are seeking something. They'll offer you something, of course. And something easy. Do this and do that and you'll reach this. It's like that thing is a static thing, and then you can reach, you can find something. If you do a program thing, a formula, which means do this and do that, you will reach that. It must be a static thing. If it is not a static, and truth, can truth be static or alive? Each minute, changing, not static. And if it is not static, then no formula can make me reach that final destination of truth. Formula means repetition of the words, the mantras, so-called meditation, this, that, and rituals also. So all those, for me, are irrational things. I think Spirituality, true spirituality, is not separate from philosophy. You see, that's the whole point. All those people, they get lost in the, the word spirituality. They are more in the so-called mystical world. And they get lost in that area. Because one leg must be on the rational spot, and the other, okay, you go around and look. But they totally go into the irrational, so-called spiritual, mystical world, and they lose this quality of intelligence. And without intelligence, there is no spirituality. So, why I said philosophy? Because philosophy, the root meaning is love of wisdom. True spirituality cannot be separate from wisdom. And wisdom is philosophy, true philosophy, not the philosophers who talk about complicated things, many of them. But real philosopher is the one who loves wisdom, love of philosophy. And wisdom cannot be separate from rational thinking. That means the true philosopher is the true spiritual person. Let's put it the other way. That's better. The truly spiritual person must be a true philosopher. Which means he or she must have the love of wisdom. That's important. So, it's been quite a long time I've been interested in spiritual life. It's a very, very long time. And I didn't have any experiences of any kind. But when I talk to people who are not as serious as I am in this thing, they have marvelous experiences of bliss, happiness, enlightenment. One day, the next day, they are in terrible darkness. That doesn't mean anything. So I really want to find out the real thing. It must be worth it. Not the plaything, entertainment. I live only once. So I'm looking for it. I want to understand. Seriously. Because if you really find something beyond the material, beyond time, you can imagine it's the most important thing. I don't want to use the words like eternal life, those kind of stuff, but there is something really beyond. Don't you think? It's important to find that thing. And that might be the purpose of living. But you can't find those things with these so-called spiritual entertainment. Mystical, all those kind of stuff. So for me, there is no experience but an awakened state. Awakened to the beauty of life. You see the flower. You see the beautiful face. The sea. I love swimming, for instance. Love of living. The joy. Where is experience of spiritual kind here? Strange mystical experience. Extraterrestrial beings. That kind of stuff. Where is it? It's all illusion. It's an awakened state of mind. Energy, because of that awakened state of mind. And you are entering into an area of unknown. Unknown in the sense, every time it comes, it's something new and different. So it's always fresh. It's always interesting. It's not that you have all those kind of so-called spiritual experiences all the time and talking to the masters and all whatever. It's limited experiences. But the true experience must be something which has never been experienced before. Because anything you experience in so-called spiritual experiences, again, must come from your subconscious, from your memories, from your knowledge. As I said, you will have experiences based on your knowledge, based on your particular knowledge. And that means that experience is limited by your memory, by time, but the real experience must be freed from time. Timeless. Bliss, truth, joy must not be time bounded. And joy is not a mystical spiritual experience in the sense they call it. So the word is a dangerous thing. The word spiritual has lost its meaning, I think. There's a spiritual life. I think joyful living. It sounds strange, it sounds too simple. But why do we look for a complicated thing? Why? Because everybody thinks after having the experience of the material world and unhappiness and desperate seeking for things and then never finding and then come to the spiritual world and they look for something extraordinary. So simple joy, real joy, is not interesting for these people. But that's so beautiful to live your daily life and simple, with joy. And through that path, you are getting deeper and deeper into basically the unknown, limitless depths of the unknown, and also the joy, joyful living, the ecstasy of living. It comes. You don't know when it will come. But every time it comes, there is a different quality. A different quality, something unique, a deeper meaning. In a way, you're getting lost in life in a beautiful way, not a stupid way. You are intelligent, lost in the sense everything is new to you. You discover even your own kitchen. Every time you watch, you see with new, fresh eyes. So it's interesting. Everything, joy, everything gives you a certain sense of joy. Joy is in everything, in simple things. Simple things of living. But the other so-called spiritual people are seeking a particular thing, the divine, the, the ultimate mystical experience of enlightenment. You see, their minds have a purpose. Therefore, they can never enjoy life in this present moment. doing what they are doing, anything they do, is beautiful, is joyful, the love of living. But if my mind is concerned about some ultimate experiences of enlightenment, those kinds of stuff, whatever, then I lose this quality of joy from living. Because I'm concerned about a different so-called spiritual life. But the true spiritual life is very simple. Live. Sounds strange, perhaps, and not good enough for many. Because everybody looks for some extraordinary stuff. And they create their own illusions. Extraordinary stuff, in the sense, the spiritual experiences, all those things. But the, the simple joy doesn't sound extraordinary to people. The love of living. But that's the truth. Fortunately or unfortunately. That's the truth of life. If one wants to have a beautiful life, happy, one must be simple inwardly. Inward simplicity. And that simplicity denies the complications of so-called spiritual mystical experiences. So, rationality in spirituality is an important thing. Which means philosophy, in the sense love of wisdom, and spirituality must walk hand in hand. They cannot be separate things. If one says, I'm spiritual, but I deny the rationality of philosophy, then you're lost. To me, those kind of spiritual people are so asleep, which means they are dead to the beauties of life, because you can experience life only when you are totally awakened, with an awakened state of mind. So I always think a gangster, for instance, you must have watched Al Pacino movies. Gangster. Sometimes cruel man. But he can be killed anytime. That's the way a gangster is. So he really doesn't care about the future, because he knows he can die, he can be killed. And in many of his movies, he's killed, for instance. One of them was very interesting. Carlito's Way, by Al Pacino. That's one of my favorites. And also, you see, there is a kind of gangster, but also he really loved the woman in this movie. Because he can love her. He's a gangster, but anyway, because there's no future, then he has he has more chances to love than so-called spiritual people, a gangster. I think this can be a little bit, you might think it's exaggerated, but it's true. I think a gangster who is ready to die anytime has much more possibility to enter into a spiritual life of love at a certain moment, living in the present moment, than those so-called spiritual people who are so deeply asleep in their own so-called spiritual mystical world. Do you understand? I said something very important, extraordinarily important. I hope those people will hear and wake up a little bit. They are so asleep in their meaningless stuff. Oh, the universe, the gods, the goddesses, the UFOs, all wake up. You are so asleep. Whereas a gangster is much more alive than you are. Living, acting. I don't say a gangster is a spiritual person. Of course not. Many of them are very cruel, but as an experience, they are more alive than these so-called spiritual. And spirituality is about being alive, alive to the beauties of life, to experience life, to love life, to act free from suffering. That means free from time. And therefore, a gangster, knowing he can die anytime, is more in relationship with the present moment than with life. Therefore, he might have more passion for life at this present moment. He might have more passion. He might love more passionately also. Though at the same time he is cruel in other way. But he is more awake to life than those so-called spiritual people. They are so deeply asleep. So deeply asleep. So, I rather take the gangster to start with. They are more alive. And I'll talk to them. I'll tell them, okay, you have this quality of being alive a little bit because you don't live in the future, and also the past because you are prepared all the time for death. If you're a gangster, you must be prepared. You must get ready any time to really end this life. That's what gangster business is. Therefore, when you look at they are really acting. They are men of action, most of them. So there is action there, which implies a certain sense of awakened state of mind, which is in more relationship with life in terms of passion. But of course, their heart is not open, otherwise it wouldn't be cruel, right? But I think they are more closer than in walking in a spiritual path than those other so-called spiritual people who are so asleep, right? So the gangster, if you talk to him, if you tell him, look, this is wrong, the path, the cruelty, come over. You can do something better. Change your heart, open your heart. Wipe out what love is not. Let's find a new business for you. And if that person sees the truth of that, then if he stops all cruel things and everything, then he is much more spiritual man than all those so-called spiritual people in their deep spiritual sleep. This sounds strange, doesn't it? It sounds strange because humanity live in such stupid illusions. They can't see the simple truths anymore. It is a simple truth. So for me, those people in those spiritual, so-called spiritual, mystical world are dead livings, so asleep. I don't want that kind of spirituality. I want the real thing, the living thing, vital, love of life, passion. And a gangster has much more than those people. Passion for life. Real passion, not the word. All of those so-called spiritual people talk about passion of living in. No! As long as you're asleep, you can't have real passion. Passion is alive. When you're asleep in a so-called spiritual world, you're dead. Passion is there. So, rationality is very important in spiritual life. And in that sense, I have nothing, as I said before in the other video, no spiritual knowledge. But there is, of course, intelligence, observation, love of wisdom, questioning. But there is no gathering of knowledge in this process, no accumulation of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, nothing. I know nothing in terms of spiritual knowledge. Really. And you don't need any knowledge to love. Just work out what love is not. Live in the present moment. There is no knowledge to live in the present moment. The moment you have a knowledge and apply that knowledge in order to live in this present moment, that denies living in the present moment, because that knowledge, which is the past memory, recorded memory, dictating your actions in the present moment in order to live in the present moment, has no meaning. Then you are not living in the present moment. This is very important to understand. So all spiritual knowledge must be destroyed. The person on the street doesn't have spiritual knowledge either, so is he spiritual? No. So what is the difference? Of course, there must be, as I said, question, intelligence, observation, understanding yourself in relationship, understanding what love is not. That very process of understanding has nothing to do with gathering spiritual knowledge. You see what love is not and what love is not. Where is knowledge? Where is the gathering of knowledge in this process? There is none. I love to have friends who are passionate. Passionate for life, you know? And they might have no relationship with so-called spiritual. I don't want those people to be. I want passionate people. They are more spiritual than those so-called spiritual people, to be honest. And they don't know they are spiritual. You see, that's the whole point. Think of a passionate person. Passion for life. Creating all the time. He or she never read about these spiritual things, Buddhism, X, Y, nothing. Passion, living, alive. She or he doesn't even know she's spiritual or anything. That's the truly spiritual person. You see? So important to understand this thing. And I love to be in a relationship with those kind of people. I don't like these so-called spiritual communities, to be honest. The real ones, the philosopher, is of course is a different thing. Love of wisdom and all those kind of different. That's beautiful. But all the other things going on in the name of spirituality has no meaning. So, rationality, spirituality, love, passion, they all walk hand in hand together. If one is missing, then you are on the wrong path. So you see, the path is very interesting. Very, very interesting. It demands extraordinary sense of intelligence, awakened state of mind, awareness. Be aware all the time, whether you are rational or not, emotional. Right? Love is rational. It is not emotional, romantic, nonsense. This is what I think. I don't know. But I am not an authority, by the way. I hate to be in any area. In the physical, things of the world, there can be authority. Like a policeman, traffic police. Or a teacher, biology teacher, chemistry. Okay, there is an authority. But in these matters of these kinds, there is no authority. I like talking friendly. All right. I think it's good enough. And see you next time.